knockout of the year. Knockout of the year.
We're not doing worst trash talker. Well, we'll touch on that real fast. The contenders are Masvidal, Covington, Rockhold. Simply because Masvidal is a giant cock, we'll say that Masvidal has the worst trash talk. He also has the worst spelling, the worst punctuation, the worst grammar, the worst brain in the UFC. So, yeah, there you go. Masvidal. And then what was it then? KO of the year, did you say?
All right, so worst trash talker of the year, guys. He got a Believe You Me award as Masvidal. And the knockout of the year. Yeah, there's a bunch.
Yeah.
The only
of the year, the contenders are Emmett versus Lamas. That was a good knockout. That was a beautiful left hook, if you remember. What's his name? Josh Emmett versus Ricardo Lamas. That happened recently. Then we've got Barboza versus Dariush. If you remember, Barboza was... Dariush was pushing forward. Barboza jumped in the air and delivered a very Matrix-esque flying knee to the dome and put Dariush to sleep. That was beautiful. And then in first place, it's almost a tie. We've got John Jones versus DC and Francis Ngannou versus Alistair Overeem. Now, Ngannou versus Overeem was probably the best knockout, and I will give him the number one spot. He is the winner of best knockout of the year. But Jones versus DC, that was not as good a knockout, but it was so emphatic and so powerful to see DC knocked out like that. Of course, that's never happened before. And it was, it was a shock for everybody to see, certainly considering that he was winning the fight. And of course, DC got a bit upset on the microphone afterwards and gave all the haters something to hate about. So it was very powerful. But still, I think the best knockout, the cleanest knockout, it was one punch. Francis Ngannou versus Alistair Overeem, nearly decapitated him. UFC 218, unbelievable finish. Unbelievable knockout. And probably, actually, we forgot about Ngannou in terms of breakout fighter of the year. Of course, I said Volkan Oezdemir, but Ngannou, man, Jesus Christ, talk about one hell of a breakout year for him as well.
Yeah.
He's a contender there. But believe you me, 2017 knockout of the year, Francis Ngannou versus Alistair Overeem. You are the winner.
That's it, dude. That knockout. It's scary, dude. It's the one time, it's literally the knockout that I saw where I was like, wow, he might not get up. And he's just so big and powerful that it's like, it's just, when we have heavyweights that are that powerful, it is actually scarier than watching even more brutal knockouts. You see like kick knockouts or flying knee knockouts. It was a fucking uppercut and his head went, so far back. It's so good. I'm watching it over and over again on a GIF.
It was very reminiscent of UFC 100 when I got knocked out. Of course, it wasn't an uppercut, but I got caught with the right hand. I went down. I was already unconscious. And then Dan Henderson flew through the air and landed that hammer fist to my dome.
Did that happen?
I didn't get up for quite some time. And it reminded me of that knockout because it was very similar. He landed the uppercut. He put him to sleep. And then he landed a massive blow again afterwards. It brought back a few memories that I don't wish to relive too frequently, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes, I do. Let's talk about this next story. Speaking of Ngannou having the knockout of the year, big story, in my opinion, for 2017 that is going to really change the future of the sport, at least for the immediate future, is the what I consider the return of the heavyweight division. Ngannou comes out and knocks out Alistair Overeem, and it's not just beating Alistair Overeem that puts you in that position, but the way that he did it was so devastating. It made everyone go, wait, holy shit, this guy can possibly do that to Stipe. I think, in fact, he's a favorite over Stipe. He's a betting favorite over Stipe. But with him, Cain, Velasquez supposedly coming back and waiting in the wings, you have three huge, terrifying, scary heavyweights that have never fought each other before. All three of these guys have never fought each other before, so you have a lot of interesting matchups to be made. And for the first time, I believe since Cain versus JDS, and when they fought on UFC on Fox, and it was sort of the beginning of that whole rivalry, we seem to have the heavyweight division looking really, really interesting. And who knows, if a couple more guys pop, we could have a fucking, amazing heavyweight division again.
Well, I said this a couple of weeks ago that Ngannou versus Stipe is, one of the truest title fights at heavyweight in a long, long time. And what I mean by that is two world-class opponents that are very similarly matched in terms of, danger ability, if you will. And Joe Rogan actually said it last night. Sorry, not last night, Saturday night at UFC 219. He said, this is the best heavyweight title fight that's ever happened. Now, that is a lofty claim, but, I kind of agree with it. I mean, if Stipe Miocic wins that fight, he has defended the heavyweight belt more times than anybody else. But of course, that's not going to be easy because Francis Ngannou, as we said, and we all know, is an absolute genetic freak. He's huge, he's fast, he's powerful, he hits like a goddamn truck. And if Stipe can't get into the floor, even though Stipe has knockout power himself, knocked out Fabrizio Verdum whilst going backwards, which isn't easy to do at all, I believe if Stipe can't get it to the ground, then, he's in a world of shit, if you will. Now, the only thing is, and I actually said this Saturday night when Rogan was talking about this fight, Ngannou, it's a quick turnaround for him because that fight against Overeem was only last month. It was UFC 218, and he's fighting Stipe Miocic at UFC 220. So the 2 months in between. Now, overtraining isn't the problem. That's not what I'm thinking the problem is. What I think the problem is, and what Ngannou should have done, of course, as a fighter, and I myself being a fighter, you have confidence in yourself. So he's not looking at it like this. But I would have liked to have seen his management to step in and say, no, do not fight Stipe at UFC 220. You're fighting for the heavyweight title of the world, okay? You're only going to get one shot. Okay, maybe if he loses, he can rebuild himself and get another crack. But if you fight for the belt, you want to win it. Now, fighting a guy like Stipe, who has a fantastic wrestling background, he needs to work on his takedown defense. He needs to work on his wrestling. And 2 months in between fights, he's not really going to have enough to do that. Now, he could have said, give me 4 months, give me 5 months. Hell, give me 6 months. And he should have gone off to Bulgaria or Russia or somewhere like that and strictly worked on his wrestling for 2 or 3 months and then done the fight. You know what I'm saying? Because I believe that is a big hole in his game. Of course, he's devastating on the feet. But if he gets taken down, will he get back up? Will he be able to stop the takedown? And if he can't, he loses that fight. Now, Stipe knows that he's the underdog, and he's okay with that situation. He understands. Stipe is a very, very smart guy. He's a smart guy. He's a humble guy. He's a great guy. And he understands that he's the underdog because of Ngannou's knockout power. But he's also quietly confident that he can take him down and win in his own style. So, it's an interesting fight for sure.
Yeah, Hank just give me a little information here. He's been taken down a total of 4 times in 6 fights, twice by Curtis Blades, once by Luis Henrique, and once by Anthony Hamilton. So he's been taken down. The problem is, a guy like Stipe, is Stipe going out there and trying to wrestle fuck people to death? Stipe believes that he could knock people out as well. Look, dude, I see Stipe trying to knock him out. I don't see him just trying to take him down and not wrestle him. And to be honest with you, I feel like that's really hard to do for 5 rounds against a guy that's that big. Can Stipe...
Well, dude, look at what he did against Mark Hunt. That's exactly what he did. He took him down. Now, of course, Mark Hunt
he's not as athletic.
Isn't as athletic as Ngannou, but still he took him down, controlled him, and ground and pounded the fucking living death out of him.
Yeah, we'll see. My prediction, I'm going to give you my first prediction for 2018. My prediction is Ngannou is going to knock out Stipe Miocic. We're going to see a second match where Stipe wins the rematch, and we're going to see another JDS Kane, trilogy fight.
Sylvia versus Arlovsky type situation.
Yeah, which is great. I think it's good for the division. And then I think you got Kane in there, and then we'll see. Who knows?
Do we have Kane in there?
I think
really?
Yeah, didn't Cormier say that he's coming back and he's going to go on a tear and dominate everybody in 2018?
Well, yeah, of course he's going to say that. And of course, Kane does have the ability to do that. But he just can't seem to get through a fight camp without being injured. And I'm not saying that as a knock on Cain Velasquez. I very, very much enjoy and admire Cain Velasquez as a fighter and as a person. He's stone cold. He's very stoic. And that makes him very, very scary. And his performances are incredible. But he's just rattled with injuries. And, I think there's something to that. He seems to have trouble with his back. And, and he's no spring chicken either. And if he's getting so many injuries, they're going to continue and going to get even harder to deal with as he gets older. So, that's why I say, do we really have Cain Velasquez? I don't know if we do.
I think, and I might have made this point on last week's show, so I apologize if I'm reiterating it, but I stand by it. So fuck it, I will reiterate it. I think the move for Daniel Cormier in order to end out his career, because he's talking about retirement, is to move up to heavyweight and to try to win that belt as well. And when you lose, fine. If you win, you go out as, I think that will do enough to erase the losses to John Jones in terms of defining his legacy and the way that people look at Cain and him being considered debatably best pound for pound. He goes up and wins the heavyweight title. I consider him best pound for pound fighter.
Oh, for sure, 100%. And by the way, I'm a big fan and a friend of Daniel Cormier, but he said himself he doesn't really want any piece of Stipe. He very jokingly constantly calls me out when we work together, and he's like, I want to fight you, Bisping. And that's very convenient because I'm actually the smaller guy, but he doesn't want to fight Stipe because Stipe is absolutely huge. And if he thinks that Stipe is huge, then of course Ngannou's even bigger. And we've seen Cormier do very well against heavyweights. He won the Strikeforce Grand Prix, came in as an alternate, I believe, and won the whole thing. But